little bit more low-key than in the past. The president hoping for a vote on that and also a spending bill next week to keep the government from shutting down. Do you think he'll get both of those votes?
I think he'll get the bill that keeps the government from shutting down. There's bipartisan interest in not shutting down the government. With respect to health care, however, that's a little bit tougher nut to crack. I think there's still a ways to go before you find enough agreement to pass that.
What will we likely see? They're trying to get, they said they're optimistic, saying they want to get this possibly next week. The president is now just in 91 days, his first 91 days. Where do you think the timetable would fall, possibly, if they are looking at getting this deal done? Well,
maybe as early as next week, but I just don't think that it's ready for prime time yet. I don't hear enough chatter from members of Congress that it's ready to go on the health care piece of it. The government shutdown is something we face over and over and over again. Absolutely.
Couple of years.
Yep.
The president is facing issues all over the globe right now. We've got North Korea, Syria, and I thought it was very interesting what he said about the situation in Libya, saying we have enough roles. We don't need any more roles. What do you make of that?
Well, I think he's making a point that there's a lot of stuff going on around the world, and we have to prioritize our crises, starting with North Korea, and Libya is a little further down on the list. Now, what was interesting was that the Italian Prime Minister was visiting today, and of course you know that Italy and Libya have a long history from the 1910s when they were a colony of Italy until just after World War II, when, of course, everything changed. So they have a lot of interest in Libya, just historically. And the United States has other fish to fry, if you want to use that metaphor.
We were talking about that in the earlier hour, that there are a lot of hot spots: Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, North Korea. President Obama, on the transition leaving office, told President Trump that your biggest priority should be North Korea. Seems he was exactly right.
Yes, I think President Obama basically said this is the thing you have to focus on, and sure enough, it is the thing.
Where do you think we are headed with the North Korean?
I think a lot more saber rattling. I think we really have to count on the Chinese to step up and play a more demonstrative role in pulling back the North Korean regime. They're the only ones who really have that economic lifeline that keeps the North Koreans kind of in the game at all.
How much can we lean on China to do that?
That's the question, Julie. You just don't know. They have their own interests, and maybe there's a give and take that we're looking at here, but we don't know. The Chinese do what the Chinese will do for their own national interest. If it fits their national interest to have the North Koreans pulling their horns, they'll do that. Otherwise, we'll muddle along.
Brian, how do you see things playing out in Syria? We're learning now that the Syrian military is moving their jets to areas where there are Russian forces. Also, that there are new intelligence reports saying that they have 3 tons of chemical weapons. How do you see this playing out? Do you think there are going to be more U.S. military strikes against Syria?
Possibly. They have parked their aircraft in a Russian protection zone. They lost about 20 in that missile strike that we launched, and that's a big number. So they're utilizing Russian protection there. We could, in theory, still go after some of their assets, but again, every one of these things across the globe ratchets up an already very, very difficult situation.
Do you think that the world is starting to see Donald Trump as someone who doesn't mess around? He makes a decision. He just moves forward, as opposed to doing lots of diplomacy and thinking and debating and discussing. And do you think that is helpful?
Well, take somebody like the dictator in North Korea. He realizes that the calculus by Donald Trump is that we're in a very tough situation, and he can't predict what Donald Trump's going to do. To the extent that Donald Trump has said to the world, I will use the full resources of the United States to affect change or to change behavior, he's certainly making that case.
Yeah, and North Korea, what, the 4th largest military in the world?
Yeah,
you were saying.
Yeah, never forget. Yeah, never forget that you can have a lot of people in uniform, and it doesn't make them a true fighting force. Yes, exactly.
All right, Brian, thank you.
My pleasure.